Thanks again for joining episode 2 of the BTB Project. It's your host again, Coleman Gearhart. Today's episode is really special to me. It's a keynote speech that I hope will inspire you. 2023 is a year of excitement, a year of opportunity. There's a lot of good things to look forward to ahead. And, being my second episode, please subscribe, comment. I would love your feedback. Each episode, your feedback allows me to get better and grow and understand how I can better serve you. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Again, keynote speech. Hope it inspires you all and look forward to it.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby.
Welcome to the BTB Project, designed to empower listeners to identify their why and to live their best lives no matter the circumstances. My name is Coleman Gearhart. A former athlete and motivational coach, I've had the opportunity to inspire thousands through my story and help accomplish what they are built to be. You'll be encouraged by each and every episode, and let's get into it.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up.
In life, sometimes we are dealt circumstances that are above and beyond our control. And those of you who are listening to me today are probably ones that are facing either something that, you're really excited about, or just overcome a difficult circumstance. And I'm sure anybody can fill in the blank based off of how they feel today. Throughout my life, I've had the opportunity to have a lot of different conversations with individuals as a motivational coach, as a mentor, and a mentee. And it's been really exciting to me to see the transformation and change. And it's really made me reflect, especially going into 2023, the outlook for the economy and the world is pretty grim in this current state. They're saying that the next 3 to 5 years might be the most challenging, with a potential recession and the high inflation rates, so on and so forth. I want to reflect back not only on situations that I have felt in the past that were pretty challenging situations, and really kind of dig deeper on who you are built to be and who you are built to become. And the only way to build anything in life is to have a toolbox. And this message today is for those that are trying to establish their why, to establish, a goal or a dream or an ambition, and have tangible ways to chip away at that goal each and every day. One of the biggest influences in my life is Simon Senek. A lot of you know who he is. The viral YouTube video about how your why can overcome any how. But he also has some really good insight on, just life in general and our energy and perspective. And one of the greatest quotes I've heard from him is, "Charisma has nothing to do with energy. It comes from a clarity of why. It comes from an absolute conviction in an ideal bigger than oneself. Energy, in contrast, comes from a good night's sleep or lots of caffeine. Energy can excite, but only charisma can inspire. Charisma commands loyalty. Energy does not." Throughout all of the interactions I've had as a coach, I've had a lot of clients tell me that I'm charismatic. And I guess what a lot of people don't know is when I go back and reflect on my childhood, where that charisma came from. So the first tool that I want to talk about today is the tool of breathing. And I'll never forget that day. I was, 12, almost 13 years old. And at the time I was living in an apartment with my mom. My parents had recently separated. My brother was living with a good friend of his, and it was just me and my mom. I remember coming home one night and putting my hand on the door handle and getting ready to turn. And I've turned that doorknob several times since we had been there. And I just remember my heart beginning to race, and that feeling of what's going to be on the other side of this door. You see, I had to face that feeling and uncertainty many times because of my mom's addiction. My mom was addicted to alcohol, and for the better part of my life, I never saw my mom sober. So that hesitation at the door to open it, on this particular day, I had to tap into that tool of breath. So before I opened the door, it was a big in through the nose, out through the mouth. And it was in that moment I opened the door. And unfortunately, it was the side of the coin of, is she awake and smiling and saying, "Hi, honey, how are you?" Or is she passed out on the floor with food all over the place and barely breathing? And that's exactly what it was. Food all over the place, mom laying there, and here I am after that breath and the doorknob, taking another deep breath to get down on my hands and knees to check to see if she was breathing, to put 2 fingers on her neck to make sure that she had a pulse, to shake her a few times. Mom, 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 wake up. There's not a 12 or 13-year-old in the world that deserves to walk into an experience like that. But I'm telling you right now that the breath work of trying to center yourself in the moment of chaos is so important. And I'm here to talk to you about it as if it was easy for me. But it was something that I had to work on each and every day. As we approach these next few years, each and every day, why not take that moment to focus on your breath? It's interesting. One of my, great podcast listens that I enjoy and I highly recommend him is Jay Shetty, helping wisdom go viral. And his story is really fascinating because he spent the better part of a few years as a Buddhist monk after living, the first quarter of his life and deciding that he wanted enlightenment and reflection. And in that moment, in the Buddhist journey that he was on, he shared something that was really profound about kids. And kids, when they go to school, the first thing they learn is not the ABCs, like most of us in the United States. They actually learn how to breathe. And I find that really fascinating because the first thing we do as human beings when things are challenging or tough or we're stressed out or, anxiety, fill in the blank, we stop breathing. We get anxious. We hold our breath. We suppress ourselves from what our body is designed to do to keep us alive. We breathe to oxygenate our body. We breathe to have our heart pump blood throughout our body. We breathe to provide oxygen to our brain. But it's the first thing we suppress. That tool is critical. And I remember that same tool being utilized not just that moment when I turned the doorknob to go into the apartment that one day, but also the 4 times that my mom went to rehab. You see, when my dad and brother were trying to take care of themselves, my dad moving in back with his mom, my grandma, and my brother living with a friend, it was that moment where I could have had the same choice of leaving as well. But that relationship with my mom was so important. I wanted to understand her. I wanted to learn more about what makes her happy, what makes her sad, how it got to this point. And it was not too long after that doorknob that led to a moment where my mom came back from a work trip and I could tell that she had been drinking. And the fact that she made it home without getting into a car accident is beyond me. But I'll just never forget having her come home and knowing that she had been drinking and calling her out on it. So, at that point, I'm, 15 years old, almost 16. And my mom said, "This is what I do. I'm never going to change." And hearing that from her at the time made me feel like that she didn't love me, that she didn't care. And I told her, "Mom, if you don't stop doing this, you're gonna lose me. I've been by your side. I want to be here to help you, but you can't do this on your own." So it was that morning when she asked me for a cup of coffee that she had in the kitchen, and I went to go get that cup of coffee, and I looked down, and that cup of coffee was white, not black. It smelled like alcohol. That I went up to her bathroom door because she was getting ready for the day, and she said, "Oh, thank you, honey, for grabbing my coffee." And it was at that moment I looked at her straight in the eye, and again, through breath, tool number one, I took that breath and said, "Mom, you have two choices. Either you get in the car and I'm taking you to rehab, or you're going to have to say goodbye because I'm going to leave." It was in that moment, that breath and, understanding my mom led to this incredible moment of her saying, "All right, I'll do it." And she gave me her keys, and there I was, taking my mom to rehab, a 30-day intervention. And I thought that was going to be the end of it. And, 4 rehabs later, eventually she ended up passing away from an alcoholic seizure that stopped her heart. And at 20 years old, I had to navigate life without a mom. So as you reflect into your life, think of those challenges. I'm sharing one that, is a deep-rooted one because, listen, it's my mom. And even today at 38, a beautiful wife and 3 kids, all I can think about is how awesome it would have been to have a grandma, to have my mom there to celebrate, our wedding and to get to know my wife and to be there for my kids. To not have that is very challenging. Along with that difficult circumstance of losing my mom, I was a master internalizer with the tough stuff that was going on in my life. And one of the biggest ways I internalized was eating. So I took on my dad's genetics. He was a tall, bigger guy growing up, but I took it to the next level. Everything you can think of, from cereals to sweets to sugary drinks and loads of Taco Bell, I got to a point where I was about to graduate high school, 5'11", 325 pounds. There was a point during the week where I'd hang out with my dad, and 3 days a week we would go to Taco Bell. And I believe I maxed out in a meal 28 soft tacos and 48 packages of hot sauce. And I was just beside myself, right? So as I was struggling with my weight, I had to really tap into tool number 2, which is talk to people. As I internalized, the only thing that made me feel good was consuming food that wasn't good for me. And that did nothing except make the problem worse. So I'll never forget the first conversation I had. It was with a high school counselor. So I had actually been sent to my academic counselor in high school because I just failed math for the 4th time in 3 years. and you have to pass math in order to graduate high school. And I went in and sat down with my counselor. My counselor was signed based off of my last name alphabetically. And she looked at me straight in the eyes and said, "You're not going to be able to graduate. I don't know what's going on with you, but if you can't pass math, you ain't going to graduate." And it wasn't, "Here, this is how I can help you." It was more of a conversation of what I wasn't good at, and it just crushed me. So there I was, ready to talk, ready to open the book of what I was going through with my mom and all of the stuff I internalized, and I just totally got shut down. And I just remember being in tears, and I get up from that room, and I just start walking out, and I get pretty close to the main door of the counseling room, and someone grabbed me by the shoulder and pulled me into their office. And it was another counselor. I'd seen her a few times around the halls, but she said something to me that day that got me talking. The only thing she asked was, "Coleman, how are you? What's wrong? Talk to me. I'm here for you." And that day changed my life. It's something that I do when I coach each and every day. I lead with a lot of open-ended questions like, what are you built to be? Because I just want to listen. I want to understand. I want to comprehend. I want to get into each and every individual to see what makes them tick. And that day, the counselor made me tick by talking. I shared everything. 3 days after sharing everything, social services showed up at my house. At this point, I was, 15 years old. My mom had just finished up her first rehab and relapsed. And I had someone come over to see how things were going. And obviously it didn't look good because my dad wasn't there and my brother was staying at a friend's house. I was so thankful for that counselor and having that platform. It literally was a springboard to some of the most amazing parts of my life. And that's where I challenge you as the listener. Whatever you have on your plate, go find somebody to talk to. Anybody. I can guarantee that there is an ear out there. And if you feel like there's not an ear out there for you, I will listen to you. I will not point. I will not judge. I will just listen. At that point, the counselor told me about a group that got together on Tuesday nights called Young Life. I didn't know what it was at the time, but she said, "Hey, there's a lot of good people there. Go check it out." And I knew that was going to be a whole lot better than going back to the apartment where my mom was. So I decided to take her up on it. And that goes into the next phase of tools. And I call it give one, take one. When I went to that Young Life group, that was an opportunity that was given to me by the counselor. And that opportunity changed my life. I, at the point, was not a very religious person. I was raised Catholic, did the Sunday church days with the Sunday school and things like that, but it never really stuck as a family and for me personally. But this organization just allowed me to get to know a little bit more about my faith, get to know a little bit more about, ways to kind of lay some of those insecurities and self-doubts to something that's greater than myself. And each and every one of us has, belief or value system that is important to them. And it was that given opportunity to me from the counselor that shaped who I am today. So I did that primarily through high school. And the take one piece of the tool is whenever somebody gives you something, you take the opportunity to thank them. You take the opportunity to encourage them or give them a recommendation to do something, or, it's constant give and take in life. You know, and as we're going into these unprecedented times, it's about the power of the relationship. I can't tell you how many times I've actually reached out to former relationships, let alone the counselor that helped me, and asked them how they're doing and what can I do for you? You've given me so much. What can I do to help you? That constant give and take in each and every facet will help you in your career. It will help you in school. It will help you in athletics. It will help you in your family. We are designed as human beings to do life together. It is not fun doing it on your own. The next tool, writing it down. So I laid a little bit of the framework of what I've experienced with my mom and being overweight, but I also had some big goals. You see, my dad and my uncle and my grandfather were tennis players. And my dad and my uncle played in college. My grandpa, ironically enough, passed away playing tennis from a heart attack. But growing up with my brother, who was 4 years older than me, he was the athlete of the family. And he would beat me as the little brother in each and every sport that we played together. And I remember as I got into it, so my brother was a senior in high school when I was a freshman. And any sport you could think of, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, my brother would always kick my butt. And it was my freshman year of high school where I decided to try out for tennis. And it was the only sport that I could actually beat my brother in. And it was an awesome feeling, but I wanted more than that. So I started writing down goals, and I had big goals, whether it was playing varsity tennis or playing number one singles for my high school, or eventually playing college tennis and playing at the Division I level and playing pro tournaments and, you know, traveling all over the country. I had big goals, and I wrote them down. All of those notes that I took growing up when I journaled, I still have those notes today. And it is amazing to me how when you put a piece of lead or ink on a paper, you are holding yourself accountable to what you're writing down. And listen, not everything I write down has come true, but I'll tell you right now that most of it has. My biggest goal growing up, and my clients to this day ask me, how in the world did you do that? And in context, when I think about it, it doesn't even sound real. You know, how does one go from 5'10", 325 pounds as a senior in high school? I never qualified as a tennis player to compete at the state level when I was in high school. I wasn't recruited by any stretch of the imagination. I went on a couple college visits, one of which was to the school that I eventually went to, the University of Northern Colorado. But at that time, the school basically just wanted me to have better grades, which I didn't have. And the elephant in the room was to lose weight. And I'll never forget the coach at the time. I went up and played a practice match and got absolutely blown off the court by a current player on the team. And the coach looked at me and said, what'd you think? And I said, I think, you know, I'll do whatever it takes. And instead of giving me a hard time about losing that match, he actually tapped into the goals that I wrote down. He said, hey, if you want to accomplish this goal, you're going to have to go make a change. And I looked him in the eye and I said, deal, watch me. So I had a good friend of mine growing up who originally was from Poland, and his dad used to clean the floors of my dad's office building. And he played for a rival school, really good player. And he used to tell me about this tennis academy that he went to in the summertime out in Arizona. And he said, hey, I'll talk to these coaches and see if we can get you out there. So instead of going to college after high school, I ended up leaving Colorado and moving to Arizona to train to become a college tennis player. And even though I'm saying part of the toolbox for you as a listener is to write things down, it does not mean that it's not hard to go after. It's the applicable action. It's the discipline. It's the routine. It's the mental toughness that it doesn't happen overnight. But I will tell you, if you chip away at it each and every day, you become better. So for 13 months, I had about $300 to $400 that I could afford a week for training. The problem was the training costs $1,500 to $2,000. So I pivoted from just focusing on training to cleaning the courts and doing maintenance at the club, to not staying at the resort, but staying at an old abandoned women's shelter that ended up having apartment rooms, which also happened to be where a couple of the coaches were staying. And I was able to stay there at a minimum cost. So all these things that I wrote down, part of that process was moving away from everything that I know, being by myself, staying in an old abandoned women's shelter, having cockroaches crawl on my face at night, having a mattress be on the floor, 2 coaches from Poland that only spoke 2 words of English. One of those words was run, and the other word was shut up. So for the better part of a year, I ate 1,300 calories a day. I trained 6.5 hours a day, Monday through Saturday. I had Sundays off. And I lost 100 pounds from the moment I arrived to the moment I left Arizona. Going back to previous tools, throughout that entire process, I was focusing a lot on my breathing. I was focusing a lot on speaking out loud so I wouldn't internalize and slip and fall back into my old habits. I was writing a whole lot of things down. My training, my regimen, how I was feeling, tapping into those emotions. I wanted everything documented because I knew that I was going to remember that moment for the rest of my life. And that really kind of segues into the next tool, and that is moving your body. I've heard the quote before, idle time is the devil's workshop. And sometimes when you are sitting around or stagnant, you lose a lot of that ability to increase blood flow, to create that, neurochemistry of endorphins releasing when you're moving your body. And although I wasn't a huge fan of fitness at the time, I became a fan of fitness when I lost that weight. And even today, whether, it's, working full time or, having the obligations of a family, you got to find ways to move. And a lot of those moments that I experienced losing 100 pounds, it's allowed me to persevere at moments that I never thought I could moving forward, both personally and professionally as I've gotten older. It doesn't take much. Everything that I've read recently it's just simply 10 to 20 minutes a day of an increased heart rate can change the trajectory of your blood sugar levels, can change the trajectory of your heart, body fat, each and every facet of good health just by moving 10 to 20 minutes a day. So who would have thought that one would have this goal of playing college tennis, losing 100 pounds, and I'll never forget the day of coming back to Colorado and making a visit up at the school that I wanted to play for. And I went and watched a match. And the coach that told me a year ago what to do actually ended up walking by me multiple times when I was watching the match because he didn't recognize me. I had completely changed. And after he walked by me again for the fourth time, I said, "Hey, John, coach, hey." And he kind of did a double take and squinted his eyes. And he's like, I watched him mouth the words, "No way." And he came up to me and he said, "You did it. You did it. I'm proud of you." The following semester, there I was, able to go to college. And I didn't have a scholarship at the time. I had to walk on and earn my spot. But based off of how I was playing and everything that I learned at Academy, I was in a pretty good spot. And that leads me to the next tool. And this one is write letters of apology or thanks. Up to that moment in college, I had a lot of people that helped me along the way, and I had a lot of people that did not help me, that discouraged me, that quite honestly made me so frustrated, that made me the internalizer that I was. And whether it was, when I finally got to school and made the team and accomplished my goal, one of the things that I did in that moment was I wrote handwritten letters to the people that helped me the most, whether it was the coaches in Arizona or the counselor that told me I could do it, or the people that I met through Young Life, or at the time my godmother, who helped me a lot with navigating a lot of the stuff that was going on with my mom. So, my mom's best friend, the people that didn't help me, coaches that told me I couldn't do it, the counselor that told me that I couldn't do it, writing them letters of thanks as well. See, a lot of times we don't understand what people are going through. You as a listener, I have no idea some of the challenges or things that you're trying to overcome. But what I do know is that everybody ends up in someone's life for a reason. Sometimes that reason we can understand, sometimes we can't. But in either situation, writing, choose 10. 5 people that helped you and 5 people that hurt you. Write a letter to those people, thanking them, and I guarantee it will change the trajectory of your life. So how does that all happen? The next tool is one of the most critical ones, and that is the mindset of just 1% better every day. When you're writing down goals or have a big idea or concept or business plan or whatever it is, sometimes we think so much about the conclusion before we think about the process. And that's what was so cool is, okay, so I accomplished a goal that I had. And then for the next 4 years, you have, a slew of events up and down. And how do you still maintain that trajectory of 1% better every day? And that's not easy to do. But 1% better every day can be in the form of many different aspects. It could be in the form of a tool, moving your body, breathing, speaking out loud, writing it down, give one, take one, writing a letter. It could be moving your body. Let's say you're trying to get back into shape. You don't have to go run a mile. Go walk down the street to get the mail. Go take your pets on a walk. Walking is one of the healthiest exercises you can do as a human being. And from what I see, for the most part, our bodies are designed to do just that. Sometimes I think when we set goals, we don't take into consideration the bricks that have to be stacked brick by brick, that have to be stacked to get to that moment, to get to that goal, to get to that result. A lot of people that I coach today, they come to me because they want a certain result. And each and every interaction I have with them is to remind them of the process. Let's fast forward to today. I've shared a little bit about what I've experienced in my past and what I overcome and the goals that I accomplished. Do you want to know what I have fallen in love with the most when I reflect back on what I've done as a player and a coach? It's not the results. It's not the accolades. It's not the trophies. It's not the Coach of the Year awards. It's none of that. It's the process. What was I doing 1% better every single day that got me to where I'm at today? Because I'm telling you right now, going into this next few years, it's the people that are able to tap into that mentality that are going to be able to sustain the negativity around them. All it is noise. If you can overcome that noise by simple, actionable progress, what's going to stop you? I'll be honest, as I give you guys that advice, there's definitely something that, even despite all the success I had as a player, did a pretty good job at stopping me in my tracks. So my senior year, I was doing a winter training, preparing for the spring tennis season, and I was in the best shape of my life, playing my best tennis. And during the training session, I just remember hitting a ball and feeling my left leg go entirely numb and a sharp pain in my back. I fell to the ground and I couldn't walk. So I was able to get myself into my car, drive home, crawl up the stairs, and I laid in bed, and I was hoping the next morning I would wake up and everything would feel normal again. Wake up the next morning, still can't walk. Have a friend of mine come and get me, and I end up going to get a MRI. And during the MRI, they said that I had ruptured 2 discs in my lower back. And growing up, unfortunately, I didn't have the healthiest of backs, so it was probably a foregone conclusion that I was going to hurt it eventually, but that wasn't the news that was tough. When they did the MRI, they actually found something else that required me to get another MRI, this time with contrast. And contrast is a solution that they inject into you to help locate active cells in the body. And right in the area where I had blown 2 discs, they had uncovered a tumor. And these tumors are typically non-cancerous, which was a blessing, but they can be very evasive to the nervous system. So unfortunately, the one that I had was connected to my spinal cord. And I was told after that second MRI that I would need emergency surgery within 10 days to remove the tumor, because the tumor could impinge my cord to the point where I could have paralysis from the waist down. So there I was in the moment of, going back to the toolbox. I had utilized a lot of tools to that point, but to be honest with you, I didn't know what tool to use hearing that news. So I kind of fell a lot back into some of the tendencies that I had growing up. A lot of internalizing, a lot of feeling sorry for myself. And I remember getting that surgery and waking up the next day, and they said that the surgery was a success, but because of the tumor being connected to my spinal cord, that they actually had to remove a very small amount of my spinal cord to remove the tumor. So for the next about 9 to 10 months, at that point, I'm trying to finish school. My college tennis career is over, and because of the trauma to my spinal cord, granted, I was able to walk, but I had paralysis in my pelvis. The tumor was connected to my L4, L5, which is the area that controls your bowels and bladder. So I try to finish school, but I have to finish school in adult diapers, and about as embarrassed and ashamed as I could have ever felt. So what do you do in that moment? That's kind of the point of this conversation today is, what do you do if you go through all of these tools in your toolbox and all of a sudden you feel like you've run out of tools? How can you build to become something without having the tools to build it? The last and most important tool that I haven't shared yet, that I believe is the most important, is you got to lean on something greater than yourself. You got to lean on your faith. My faith happens to be with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. When you wake up from a surgery after being as athletic as I was and accomplished what I accomplished, I went back to when I found my faith at that Young Life camp, that counselor's recommendation, because I decided to speak. When you speak, people will help you, okay? And when you wake up and you're told that you got to wear adult diapers, you got to lean not on your own understanding, because that's not comfortable for anybody, not for any 21, 22-year-old that is trying to finish school. It's not comfortable for anybody or any circumstance. We're imperfect people. And more often than not, we find ways to make mistakes, not because we want to make mistakes, but because that's just how we're wired. But through faith, the perfect person can be someone that we lean on each and every day. So I want to go back through the tools again, because all of the tools can be used in our faith. Some of the greatest moments I have in prayer are when I'm breathing and I'm speaking and writing down and giving my sin and taking, redemption and love and support, writing how I feel, whether it's being sorry for what I've done or giving thanks for what I have, moving my body, all tapping into my faith. I would have never been able to get through that moment without faith. Today, I still have issues almost, 15, 16 years later. I still have neurological issues because of what I experienced with that tumor. And ironically, I was in a car accident that required me to get a MRI of my brachial plexus. Had the MRI done, and they said, oh, by the way, we got to do another MRI with contrast. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. I've heard this before. Found more tumors in my brachial plexus. I've had neuropathy in my hand, neuropathy in my left foot, all throughout my body. And it's faith that has allowed me to get through that. It's faith that allowed me to, after my playing career and recovering from my back surgery, leaning in and actually developing a really good relationship with my brother and watching him coach. And as I watched him coach high school sports, it inspired me to become a high school coach. And 16 years later, in the state of Colorado, I went from a player that never even played a qualifying state match to winning multiple state championships through individual positions as a coach, being a 4-time runner-up state champion at the team level, coaching over 60 kids to Division I and Division II college scholarships, an additional 25 kids to Division III scholarships, coaching adults, young kids, elderly, people that are passionate about the game of tennis, all finding hope and enthusiasm and encouragement because I tapped into what I was built to be. I tapped into the toolbox. I had faith and encouragement each and every day. As we go in to these next few years, 2023 and beyond, I challenge you to not lean on your own understanding. I challenge you to breathe, to speak, to write it down, to give one, to take one, to write letters of apology and thanks, to move your body, to tap into your faith. That's what the BTB project is all about. We together as a community can overcome any and all obstacles. I believe that. I believe it with conviction. I believe it with my heart. I believe it with my soul. Impossible's nothing. We can get 1% better together each and every day. With these tools, with the establishment of your why, it will overcome any how. I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to listen to my story, to hear some of the trials and tribulations and mountaintops and moments of defeat and moments of sheer and other glory. That's what life is all about. I'm encouraged to know that us together can do anything. Let's make these next 3 to 4 years moments that we will remember for the rest of our lives. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, listening to some tools that can help you become what you're built to be. And until next time, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and let's keep doing this together. Take care.
I'll be your heart, temptation, 'cause I know